Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with leadership and business advisor Liz Weber. When Liz Weber talks, her clients listen. She's an advisor to boards, owners, and C-suite teams. She's a leadership, strategic, and succession planning consultant, author, and speaker. She helps her clients focus on the right things at the right time to get the right impact. As a result, they embrace performance, profits, and their workplace culture. It's a great story. Tune in.
Well, it's great to meet you. And before we get into your life as a leadership and business advisor, I want to know, we're looking at the calendar. It's April. The pandemic happened 4 years ago. How did you survive that time period? And how did it change the way that you approach business now?
Honestly and candidly, 2020 was the third busiest and biggest year I'd ever had in business. And I've been in business for 32 years. And unlike so many other businesses that, Joe, were dependent or are dependent on foot traffic, things like that, my business is not. But I think the driving reason why I was so busy, as we all know, businesses were in panic mode and business leaders were in panic mode. They didn't know how to operate. Physically, they had to change the way many of them were dealing with and supporting employees, had to deal with supply chain issues, had to deal with tremendous fluxes in customer base changes and things like that, and also just an enhanced tension within their employee pool because of societal issues and political issues. So there was this convergence of really heavy business and people management issues that were facing business leaders. So my clients were really looking for support in very little chunks of time because they were working, 18 hours a day. So when COVID hit in March of 2020, as we all know, everybody was kind of scrambling. And one of the things that I started doing that helped my business do well during that whole period was I started week by week just sending out an email to my contacts who are CEOs and business leaders, business owners. And I would say, here's a thought for you to do today. Because what they were going through was a massive change initiative. And one of the things that I do with my business, Joe, is I help organizations think through and then plan strategically. So I facilitate strategic planning retreats and things like that. So as part of that process, we're always talking about, now that you have a plan, how do you implement it? How is that change process going to impact your team psychologically, emotionally, personally, behaviorally, how they perform? And how do you lead them through that change process to get them to perform at the level that you need to get this initiative taken care of? So what I did during COVID was I reminded them that, hey, gang, you are now living a massive unplanned change cycle. So think about the change cycle, and here's where you are today, here's where your team is today, here's what they need you to do next. And so week by week, I would just take them to where I anticipated they were probably dealing with their team members. And little by little, what started happening is I then started having a lot of my clients, Joe, literally from like 3 years before that, from 8 years before that, from 12 years before that time period, call me and say, can you talk to my team and I virtually about this? Can you do a training program for my team on conflict management? Did a lot of conflict training during 2020. And a lot of them also just reached out and said, Liz, we have this project that we need someone to keep our project team steady. Would you hold their hand during this initiative? Because we have to get this done. And so I just became a resource for them, a calm during their storm, to help them identify what to focus on that day or that week to get them to the next day or the next week. So long answer to your question, but that's how I dealt with 2020.
I like it, yeah, and that gives me kind of a blueprint of what you do. But I want to kind of get to the heart and soul of it. If I put you in front of a bunch of third graders, it's career day, and one of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
I help people who run businesses do their jobs better. and help them make better decisions so that the people that they pay to work for them can keep their jobs and make more money in their jobs, and the customers that buy their products can buy more products, and they can have more customers to buy more products.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
I wanted to be a nurse like my mother, because I just thought that would be a really cool thing to do. And that was my dream until I was a sophomore in high school. And one of my brothers had gone to spring break in Florida. And when he was there, his appendix burst. And he was medevaced back to Wisconsin, where I'm from. And my mother and I went to visit him in the hospital. And I remember walking into his hospital room and seeing my brother Ron laying in his bed across the room. He was green. He was moaning and groaning. And we walked up to his bed, and my mother had been an RN, and she noticed that his IV had come out, and there was blood running down his arm and onto the floor. And also where his appendix had burst, they had done surgery, but they left it open so it could heal. And it was, I don't want to get graphic, but it was oozing. And I just went, oh, God, I'm going to deal with paper and computers and business stuff. And that second, I changed from being wanting to be an RN to going into the world of business.
Wow.
Yeah. And I decided, I came from a very small town in Wisconsin, a farming community, and I wanted to explore, and I wanted to get into international business. So I thought I wanted to become a commodities broker. And I went to college for international business.
So talk to me a little bit about how some of these seeds to be so good in business and to give you this leadership acumen, how were these seeds planted in you early on to grow into you today?
I was fortunate in that I had, from my perspective, an idyllic childhood in that my parents had their own business. They had a mobile home park, and my dad also had a TV and appliance repair business. So ever since I, can remember, talking about business around the dinner table was very common. Helping my dad in the business, my whole family, all my siblings, we helped in his businesses. And so it was always part of my DNA, but it was also part of my DNA to be logical when it comes to identifying what has to happen next in a situation. And what I mean by that is with having a mobile home park, we were also my dad's work crew. So whether we were building an expansion onto the park and putting in new sewer systems and putting in new lots and things like that, we were the construction crew. And so from the time we were little kids, my dad would be telling us as we're laying pipe, think about what the next step is and think about what the next tool or piece of equipment that we're going to need is and get that ready, get it teed up. So from the time, again, I was little, I was always taught to read the room, think ahead, anticipate what's coming next, anticipate of the consequences of taking an action or not taking an action, but most importantly also, remember you're part of a team. And what you do impacts everybody else in this team, in this family. So, be a representative of this team, be a good representative of this team, and then help carry this team forward.
So talk to me a little bit about who an ultimate hero or inspiration has been for you in your life.
Historically, it's been Abraham Lincoln because his birthday is February 12th, mine's February 13th. So he's just always been somewhat of a fascination for me. But really where I came to truly respect him, in addition to the biographies of his I read, was reading Doris Kearns Goodwin's biography of him on Team of Rivals, and how he intentionally and unselfishly selected who he believed were the best people for the various cabinet positions, regardless of party, who were the best for the country at that time. And he was willing to deal with all the garbage and the fight and the messiness that came with it because he was focused on purpose. And I just always really respected that of him. My most recent fascination, and actually I just ordered a book about him, is Jose Andres, the man that has started World Kitchen. Old Central Kitchen. And, as the conversation we're having, we know tragically a number of his workers were just killed. But before that happened, I have been marveling at his ability to not only expand his business from his love of food and his restaurants to then taking that and really expanding it on a global basis to help people that are in need of food. And also his ability to have one of the best and most agile emergency food mechanisms globally. And I heard him on an interview once, and he said that his key to that is that he has ingrained in his team that, of course, they're going to be dealing with change. They're going to be dealing with things that have to happen fast. He said, but we focus on ensuring our people are able to deal with complexity and adaptability. And I just thought that was a brilliant insight, to be able to deal with complexity and adaptability. So he's my latest fascination.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm curious, if you could meet anybody alive right now on the planet and have a conversation with them, who would it be? Who would you love to meet and talk to?
There's a number of people. I love learning from smart people. I love learning from interesting people that do things that I didn't imagine that they would be doing. And honestly, as you ask that question, I just think of Ryan Reynolds. I saw something about him the other day, and yes, he's a famous actor. I would love to have conversations with him about his business decisions for his gin company, for buying the soccer team, for the cell phone company. I would like to learn about his business decisions and how he and his team have come to those points of decision making. The same thing for LeBron James. How did you mass your empire? Reese Witherspoon, another one. Anybody that has segued from what many people see as their traditional trajectory in acting or athletics or even in the business world, and then how did you leverage that in a mass, a very complementary set of businesses that impact the world in many different ways. So a number of people. I love learning from people that have thought creatively and are doing good things creatively.
So you have to give out good advice to your clients, but what's the best advice you've ever gotten?
That's a good question. So where my mind immediately jumped was the best advice I got was from my dad when I was 24. And it's a piece of advice that kind of forced me to grow up and be a big girl. And what was happening, Joe, was it was the first time I was negotiating a new car purchase on my own, because before that, my dad had always gone with me when I had purchased a used vehicle, and he had basically handled the negotiations. So this particular time, I called my dad. I told him about the vehicle that I had found that I wanted. I told him what the price was, what I could afford. My whole theory and my whole process of how I was going to try to negotiate this. And my dad just listened, and then he simply said to me, he said, Liz, you know what you want. You know what you can afford. You've thought through what they're probably going to counter with. Now, when you go there, make the deal that you need to make for yourself, and don't let them treat you like a girl. And he said that, and I was like, whoa. Because my dad, his comment, don't let them treat you like a girl, was nothing about being sexist. What he was telling me was, don't go in there and expect them to take care of you. Go in there and be an educated consumer and negotiate for yourself the deal that's going to be best for you. And that piece of advice, and ultimately became a title for one of my books, but that piece of advice was the one that really jolted me into taking off my rose-colored glasses and realizing that no matter how nice people were in whatever, walk of life, whether it was in my career or in a business situation, I still had the responsibility to make decisions that were best for me, in those situations, and not rely on somebody else to make a good deal or open a door for me. That was my responsibility to do that.
So every day you wake up, you're out there helping people and changing them, but you also have to evolve as a person yourself. What's that motivation for you? What is it that is the drive that makes you who you are?
I get bored otherwise. I always loved continuing to learn. I like people that are continually learning something new, something different, that can help me see something in a new way. It's a challenge that I've always put in front of my team is, what are you bringing to the table? Not in a harsh way, but bring something that's going to help us see something in a new light. It's the same thing. My husband and I, one of the reasons that we've been happy for 32 years is he loves to do his own things and share insights and learn new things and then share them with me. Same thing with my girls. We've always, kind of encouraged them to continue to learn and get better at what you're doing so that number one, you're better at what you're doing, but you're also more interesting to the people that you're around. It just, for me, it just makes life more fun.
So what's been one of your favorite client success stories?
I was working with a community bank that had reached out. The CEO had been newly appointed. She had formerly been their CFO, but she had been appointed CEO, and the board had told her that she needed to turn the bank around financially because they were not generating the kind of revenues that they needed. And they wanted her to implement performance reviews on all staff and start holding staff accountable to hit some numbers and make things happen. So she reached out to me to see if I could provide training to her managers on how to do performance reviews. And as we talked, I said, yeah, I could do that, but I won't, because that won't solve your problem, because your managers have never given performance reviews before. And you just shared with me also that many of your positions at the bank don't have position descriptions, and you don't have any bank goals, and you don't have a strategic plan. So what are your managers going to be evaluating your team's performance against when they don't have any expectations? It's going to demoralize everybody, and you're going to have managers making things up, and they're not prepared to give any feedback right now. So we had a longer conversation, and I was very happy that the bank president agreed, and she said, I didn't think we were ready for this. And it started a multi-year relationship, Joe, where I worked with her, I worked with her executive team, I worked with her board. We created a strategic plan and started rolling it out. We started doing some group and individual coaching with the leadership team. We did training for all employees as well as the management team. Help them develop position descriptions for all positions, help them set up a process by which they could start setting goals with employees. They could start aligning those goals to various department goals that align to the bank's overall goals. And long story short, that bank, for the last 4 years, has been one of the top 200 community banks in the country. But where I'm most pleased is when I first started working with them, and we would hold training sessions for all employees, we literally would have people sitting around the perimeter of the room with their arms crossed, not wanting to be there, not wanting to talk to somebody from a different branch, because, Joe, they were from a different branch, and it was a different team, and it was like third grade cliques. To the last time I was with them, and walked into the room, and people were laughing, and they're talking, and they're milling about, and sitting with different people, and they now rotate people between all different branches of the banks, and they've got things that are standardized. It's a completely different culture. And it's one of the situations where, with the unrelenting focus of that CEO and her dedication to knowing things could be different and could be better, as well as her executive team who was willing to grow with her and change the way they were leading, and being willing to make hard decisions when it came to certain staff members, but also other staff members realizing it wasn't a good long-term fit for them. This organization is a completely different organization, and I'm really happy that I got to be a part of it and experience it and see firsthand what a really, really good leader and a leadership team can do. It can change lives. It really can change lives.
So, Liz, of all of the things that you've done professionally, what are you the proudest of?
Situations like that where you can see that an organization financially is doing much better, but more than anything, where you see people who never thought they could be a leader are really good leaders. Or I was at an event a couple weeks ago, and this man walked up to me and he said, "So you're my retirement." And come to find out, he was the husband of a woman who owned this company that I've been advising for a number of years. I'd never met her husband. And the work that what we have done together has helped her grow her business to the point where she didn't think she was going to be able to retire comfortably. And they are really well off right now. So situations like that, Joe, where we can help leaders be better leaders, but they can help then create the lives for themselves and for their team members to really do good things for themselves, do really good things for their customers. That brings me joy. That brings me a sense of fulfillment.
So at the end of the day, Liz, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you're in control. You run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I am someone who is committed to being honest and candid. I will help and help the person achieve their objective. That's my ultimate goal. I'm not someone who, if they are looking for someone to be the life of the party, that's not me. But I love having a good time. I'm quite often a stabilizer. And that's who I am. I'm stable, I'm consistent. I don't need to be out in front to be happy. I am happy for other people to shine. But at the same time, I'm very content in being a go-to resource and a first call for a lot of people.
Excellent, Liz. What a great answer. Hey, thank you so much. And before we get out of the proverbial door here, if anyone wants to reach out, hire you, learn more about you, where is the best place to go?
The best place, Joe, is to hit my website, which is W as in William, B as in Bravo, S as in Sierra, L as in Lima, L as in Lima, C as in Charlie.com, WBSLLC.com.
Beautiful. Liz, thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you, Joe. Have a great one.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.